Hello, my name is Elena Lopez, and today I'm going to be teaching you about symmetry. By the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to define symmetry. You're going to be able to determine whether an object is symmetrical or asymmetrical, and then you're also going to be able to find the line of symmetry. First, I'm going to start by going over some definitions, and then I'm going to give you a few minutes to write all of them down because we're going to be using them a lot today. Symmetry is when an image can be folded along a line into two matching halves. Symmetrical is what an image is called if it can be folded along a line into two matching halves. Asymmetrical is when an object cannot be folded into two matching halves. And line of symmetry is the line that cuts an image exactly in half. Now I'm going to give you a few minutes to write all of these down. Alright, so the main way that symmetry is taught is by the folding method. Can anyone tell me what they think the folding method is? The folding method is whenever we get an object and we think about the different ways that we can fold it that will make us have two matching halves. For example, we have this triangle right here. When we're thinking about which ways we can fold it to make two separate halves, we're able to find that along this line right here, the line of symmetry, if we folded it, we would have two halves that are exactly the same. So the line of symmetry is the line that cuts an image exactly in half. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about asymmetrical objects. This is when an object cannot be folded into two matching halves. For example, we have a cloud. As we all know, clouds are different shapes. So this is our cloud right here. Is there any way that we can fold it that will give us two halves that are exactly the same? No. If we folded it this way, those two halves wouldn't be the same. If we folded it this way, those two halves wouldn't be the same. So there's no way for us to find a line that cuts an image exactly in half. And that means that this image right here is asymmetrical. Alright, now we're going to look at this square right here. As you see, there's many lines on it. And all of those lines are lines of symmetry. So this square shows us that we're able to have an object that has multiple lines of symmetry. If we look at this one right here, we have a line going this way, diagonal. If we folded our image along that line, we would have two sides that are exactly the same. We also have a line that goes up and down. If we fold it along that line, we will also have two images that are exactly the same. So this way, we're able to fold it four different ways on this square, and all of those lines are lines of symmetry. Are there any questions? As we all know, when we draw an image, sometimes it's really hard to make that image symmetrical. Over here, I drew two hearts, and they are symmetrical. We're just trying to figure out which line shows the correct line of symmetry. If we look back over here, the line of symmetry is the line that cuts an image exactly in half. So we're trying to figure out which line over here is showing us the correct way to cut an image exactly in half where both sides are exactly the same. Can anyone tell me whether A or B is correct on this one? Alright, A is correct because this line right here shows us where this image is cut directly in half. And that line right there shows us that both sides are exactly the same. This line on this one, if we were to fold it over on that half, we wouldn't have two sides that are exactly the same. So that one's incorrect. Can anyone tell me on this second one whether A or B is correct? Alright, B is correct because when we fold our image along that line right there, we have two sides that are exactly the same. If we were to fold the line on that line right there, we would have two sides that were not the same. So that's why A is incorrect. Are there any questions on this one? Alright, now we're going to move on to these images over here. I'm going to pull them over here and we're going to decide whether this object is symmetrical or asymmetrical, and we're also going to find the line or lines of symmetry. This is our first image. Can anyone tell me whether this is symmetrical or asymmetrical? All right, it is symmetrical. Can anyone tell me why it's symmetrical? It is symmetrical because it can be folded along a line into two matching halves. Now we just need to find that line, the line of symmetry. Does anyone know where it is? All right, it is right in the center right here. If we fold along this line right here, we will have two halves that are exactly the same. Is there any other line that is a line of symmetry on this one? No, there isn't. So this one has one line of symmetry. All right, is there any questions on this one? Now we're going to move on to the next image. All right, this is our next image. Can anyone tell me whether they think this image is symmetrical or asymmetrical? All right, it is symmetrical. And can anyone tell me why it's symmetrical? It's symmetrical because it can be folded along a line into two matching halves. Can anyone tell me where the line of symmetry is on this image? All right, it's right in the middle. So if we folded this image right on that line, we would find two halves that are exactly the same. Is there any other lines of symmetry? No. So this one has one line of symmetry. All right, is there any questions on this one? Right, now we're going to move on to the next one. All right, this is our next image. Can anyone tell me whether this is symmetrical or asymmetrical? All right, it is symmetrical. Can anyone tell me why it's symmetrical? It's symmetrical because it can be folded along a line into two matching halves. And can anyone tell me where those lines of symmetry are on this one? All right, there's one right here. Because if we folded it along that line, we would have two halves that are exactly the same. Can anyone tell me if there's any other lines of symmetry? Right, there is one more line of symmetry, and it is this way. So if we were to fold it along that line as well, we would have two sides that are exactly the same. Are there any other lines of symmetry? No, so the rectangle has two lines of symmetry. All right, are there any questions on this one? Now we're going to move on to the next one. All right, so now we have a circle. Can anyone tell me whether a circle is symmetrical or asymmetrical? All right, a circle is symmetrical. All right, and why is a circle symmetrical? Because it can be folded along a line into two matching halves. Can anyone show me the lines of symmetry on this one? All right, so this one is a little bit tricky. On this one, if a line goes directly through the center, there is an infinite amount of lines of symmetry. So as long as the line goes through the center of the circle, there are a lot of lines of symmetry. And that is called infinite. And that means we can go this way, we can go this way, this way, this way, and so on. As long as it goes through the center of the circle, it is a line of symmetry. Are there any questions on that one? All right, now we're going to move on to the last one. And this one's a little bit different. On this one, we have a circle that's a smiley face. Can anyone tell me whether this image is symmetrical or asymmetrical? All right, it is symmetrical. And why is it symmetrical? Because we can fold it along a line into two matching halves. And can anyone tell me where the line of symmetry is on this one? This one is a little tricky because there's only one line of symmetry on the circle, and that's because it has a face in it. The line of symmetry is directly down the center because we have an eye on each side of the face, and then we also have a smile. So if we folded this smiley face directly in half, we would have two halves that are exactly the same. So that means that we have one line of symmetry there. The reason why we can't have a line of symmetry the other way is because then on one half we would have the smile, and on the other half we would have the eyes. And that's not exactly the same on each side. So this one has one line of symmetry. All right, are there any questions on that one? All right. The last thing that I wanted to go over today is that we can find symmetry in many things. We can find symmetry in art, we can find symmetry in nature, and then we can also find symmetry in buildings. So some examples of that would be, in nature we have flowers. And some flowers are symmetrical in some ways, where if we cut it directly down the half, they're exactly the same. So that just shows us that nature has symmetry. We can find symmetry in many things. So today, whenever you go home, I want you to think of something. I want you to find something, and I want you to determine whether it's symmetrical or asymmetrical and how many lines of symmetry it has. All right, are there any questions? The last assignment that we have today is this one right here. It's kind of similar to what we did today with these images. What you're going to do is you're going to draw the lines of symmetry, and then you're going to determine whether it's symmetrical or asymmetrical, and you're going to work on this independently. Are there any questions? All right, you can begin.